I'm your host, Brandy Fleck, and this is Human Amplified. This is a show about our existence, our place in the world, what it all means, and ways to make it better. From big picture ideas that blow your mind to practical life advice, we explore it all. We amplify the voices of healers, survivors, mystics, disruptors, scientists, creatives, and everyday people like you and me to expand our consciousness and use that awareness to evolve into who we really want to be in the depths of our soul. Humans Amplified. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoy this episode, please go rate and review the show. And remember to subscribe where you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Support for this podcast comes from Bed of Nails. You've probably seen acupressure products before, maybe in your Facebook feed or something like that. It could be for any number of brands, but it's a fact that the Bed of Nails is the Swedish original. I've been using the Bed of Nails mat and pillow since 2012. Before they were popular, no joke. I personally remember when no other products were widely available and when I was scared to even try it. But I did try it. When you lay on it at first, it can get a little uncomfortable, but that's short-lived. After a few minutes, your back gets warm, starts pulsing, and then starts to relax. You quickly get used to distributing your weight on the Bed of Nails, and it's nothing but a welcomed reprieve from a stressful day. Over the years, it's helped me increase circulation, relax, and reduce pain in my back and neck. I also use my Bed of Nails every single time I meditate, and I love it. If you feel like you would like to do the same, you can shop my Bed of Nails affiliate link to get yours. I have put that link in the show notes of the episode, or if you're watching on YouTube, you can find it in the description of this video. And there is also a discount code there for you where you can get 15% off at checkout. So be sure to go get it. Today, we're talking to Kourtney Brownlow, who is a business mentor and gym owner here in Franklin, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville. This episode is for you if you're looking for ways to change your mindset, build resilience, and stay motivated toward your goals, whatever they may be, while still embracing the fact that you're a human and sometimes have what we generally consider negative emotions. Kourtney is personally and professionally equipped to talk about these topics because she practices what she preaches. She's had to delve deep into mindset work when her journey into entrepreneurship began unexpectedly in 2014, when she opened her first gym. The first 5 years, she had no idea how to run a business and succeeded on sheer will and relationships. In 2019, Kourtney made a pivotal decision to invest in her professional development by hiring her first business mentor. This decision transformed her business and led her to buy a second gym in 2021. In 2022, due to some life changes, Kourtney sold her original gym, but continues to run her personal training studio in Franklin, Tennessee. Inspired by her own journey, Kourtney now pays it forward by mentoring other business owners, helping them unlock their full potential and achieve the life they envisioned when they first embarked on their entrepreneurial ventures. Personally, Kourtney is a wife and mom to 4 beautiful children, one of whom is hearing impaired, and you'll hear part of her personal story around learning this, how her mindset evolved, and what she's done to grow with her son. We also cover topics like the importance of mindset, how grief impacts mindset, the spectrum of mindsets available to you, healthy positivity versus toxic positivity, the point of negativity and what to do with it, and yes, it does have a point, getting unstuck from negative cycles or patterns, where resilience fits in, welcoming challenges, and holding yourself accountable for achieving your real goals. Our discussion over the next hour is packed with personal development and growth gems. So let's dive in to get you moving. For the links mentioned throughout this episode, visit the show notes at humanamplified.com/episodes/119. A question that I ask everyone who comes on the show is, what does being human mean to you?
Yes, and I thought that this was such a fantastic and complex question. And it really comes you're going to get however many billion of people on the earth. That's how many different answers you're going to get to this question because everybody sees humanity differently.
Hmm.
The first thing that really comes to my mind about being human is just a reminder that I'm only human. And I'm not the creator, whoever that is, in everybody's, worldview. I am simply the created, and I'm here for a purpose. And I really truly believe in being a good human. And I think it's very simple to do that. It's to love people and to stand on people and not on issues, and just learn to love each other no matter what belief systems that you have. I feel like I could talk for 3 hours on just being human.
Like, I really love what you said, by the way. And it's a really interesting perspective. I've never heard anybody say, I'm not the creator, I'm the created.
Yeah.
So, what is the difference between not being the creator, but being creative and being able to create something?
Yeah, I think that one thing is not being the creator shows me that like I have limit to my power, right? Like I didn't speak my life into existence. Someone or something else did that. And so I think that it's a humbling thing for me to go like I am only human. And I think sometimes like we could walk in a little bit more humility of being only human. And I think that a lot of us feel the humility of humanity, but sometimes we project something more than that to make us feel better about ourselves or to feel less insecure in situations, but to just go, I'm only human. I say that out loud to my kids a lot, like when things happen, like say I'm driving down the road and I'm not a self-proclaimed good driver. Like, listen, I'd like to blame the fact that I have four little distractions in my car most of the time, but sometimes like I make a mistake on the road, right? And the reaction that humanity can give sometimes is so intense. And
Mm,
and my response is always like, man, I didn't mean to do this thing, but why do we always have to respond in such like an intense way? Because I'm going, hey, I'm only human. I made a mistake, and I tell my kids that person's made a mistake too. They just forgot about that in this moment.
yeah. Okay. Guys, I'm here to welcome Kourtney Brownlow to the show, and I'm so excited to have you here. And that was a great precursor to, I think, what we're going to talk about today. But Kourtney, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. So I'm just it's been a really crazy couple of weeks of life and parenting and work, and kind of settling into a less intense season in the next few weeks, which is very needed.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, that ebb and flow. Sometimes it feels like it's all just,
Yeah.
which one is it? The
Yes.
the crest of the wave.
Yes.
Before we dive in too far, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, I guess my biggest job and role in life is as a wife and a mom. I've been married to my husband Daniel for I think 16 years or almost 16 years. It's funny. I think you forget as you get older how many years that is. I have four kids, 11 and under. I have three daughters, which is going to get really interesting come puberty. And I have one son. We adopted him from South Africa, and has been just such the great exclamation point on our family. And when I'm not homeschooling or parenting my adult child, aka my husband, I am a business owner, and I mentor business owners to grow and run successful businesses.
Okay, and what's your business, Kourtney?
So my brick and mortar business that I own now is Franklin Strength and Wellness. It's a personal training studio located in Franklin, Tennessee.
Awesome. And is that separate from mentoring business owners, or is it
Yeah,
like sort
it
of?
really is. I became a business owner by accident. I definitely became a business mentor by accident. It's just kind of the path that life took me on, and I look back sometimes and wonder how I got here. I absolutely love where I am. It just was not my plan, coming out of college or even, 10 years ago when this
Ooh,
all started. Yeah.
what was your plan?
I don't know. I do have a degree in like biblical studies, and I did spend some of my early 20s in like full-time like vocation in a local church. I didn't love that. And but I've always had this like entrepreneurial mindset. My husband and I would create businesses all the time, really terrible businesses that we thought that we would do, right? It usually comes from a hobby that you enjoy, that you think, oh, I can monetize this or I can do this.
Mhm.
And that's honestly how we ended up in the fitness space. We had gotten involved in CrossFit when CrossFit was becoming this brand new, fad. And we loved it. And I thought, hey, I can do this. Like I'm a stay-at-home mom now. I love raising my daughter, but I also feel like I have a lot to give the world and society. And I'm just at home raising my daughter. And I feel like there's something else I can do.
Mhm.
And so we went to the bank. We got a $30,000 loan back when you could just go do that. No bank's doing that now. And we opened our first business. And 10 years later, I'm still in the fitness industry.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Well, and it's great that you love where you've ended up too. I know that you've told me that you like talking about mindset
Mhm.
and resilience. And at first I was like, oh, as a gym owner, that must come into play a lot. But as a business mentor, that's probably where it comes in a lot too. So, how has mindset shaped your life and how do you sort of help other people with it?
Yeah, sure. I think like the biggest thing for me, I didn't think about mindset a decade ago when I was upping my business, right? And honestly, like I had challenges and things in my life, but for the most part, it's like you're just kind of going and doing and just kind of seeing where life takes you. When I opened up my own business, not knowing how to operate a business, right? Like I really started to see my own limitations. And it was in those limitations that I started to have a lot of internal dialogue. My husband and I had a lot of external dialogue. Some of it was good and some of it was not. It was all very growing for us. But I've learned that your mindset affects everything, right? It can suck the life out of everything or it can breathe life into everything. So I think more than anything, I've learned that I have to keep a pulse on that. Like, where is my head at? Where are my kids' heads at? Where's my husband's head at? Like it makes a big impact on everyday life, but also your vocation. Yeah, I think just recognizing where you are is important. I read a book, and I'm not going to be able to pull the author's name off the top of my head, but it's called The Gap and the Gain. And I love it because it talks about two different types of mindset. One is a gap mindset, which is basically all of the things that you haven't accomplished or all of the negative parts of the mindset, right? This is how much further I still have to go. Where the gain mindset is going, no, but look how far I've come. And I think a lot of us, especially entrepreneurs, which I'm working with entrepreneurs like all the time, and a lot of entrepreneurs are visionaries. And so we grasp an idea or a concept and like our mind goes in that direction. And all we can think about is the end game and not the process that it takes to get there sometimes. And so watching people really struggle on the journey and not get that instant gratification of getting where you want to be without putting in the work to get there first. So I see that a lot with business owners. Honestly, I see it a lot in my own life. When I read that book, I told my husband, listen, I want you to call this out in me. When you see me talking about the things that I've not yet done or how far I have to go, I want you to remind me to see the opposite side of that, of how far we've come. In our family, we really experienced that a lot, like in the last 3 years. So I mentioned earlier that we adopted our son from South Africa.
Mhm.
And when we did, we found out like literally they put this little boy at 2.5 years old in our arms in South Africa. And we find out like 30 minutes later that our son is deaf. It was not something that we were anticipating. It was not a part of the plan, but it was a very big reality in that moment to go, well, wait a second. Like he doesn't have language, he doesn't have an ability to communicate. And I love a challenge,
Mhm.
and I'm thinking, we live in America, we will go to the doc, like, all of the different things. But what I've really learned over the last 3 years is it's really, really hard to learn a new language.
Mhm.
Like for me at 41 years old, it's hard for me to learn a new language. I watch my husband pick up on it a little bit faster than me. And if I allow myself to get in that gap mindset, I can go, wow, I can't believe 3 years later I'm not fluent in American Sign Language,
Mhm.
right? And that can have a big impact. It can make me not want to learn anymore. It could make me go into a depressive state. It can make me think of like how frustrating it is sometimes to not be able to have the conversations that I want to have in the way that I want to have them. Or I can look in the gain mindset and go, neither me or Malachi could communicate with each other 3 years ago. And now he can tell me about his day. I can ask him how he's feeling, right? I tell everybody my fluency in American Sign Language is 5-year-old, right? That's how old he is. That's all I have to speak at this point because we're learning and growing together. But I'm also watching my son's language take off a little faster than mine. Yesterday, I was trying to tell him to stay in the garage, and he looks at me and he rolls his eyes and he's like, no, no, no. And I signed garage incorrectly. And so he's showing me how to sign garage. And I'm like, that's so
Wow.
cool. And so I could go, wow, my son, gap mindset, my son knows more sign language than me. Or gain mindset, I could go, how cool is it that Malachi has gone from not even knowing that he had a name to being able to teach me a proper sign in 3 years, you know? And so I think that's really like the biggest part for me on how mindset shapes your life, right? I think we have a choice when it comes to our mindset, but I also don't believe it always has to be positive. You know, like
Yeah.
you have to wrestle in the negativity sometimes, but it's how you do it and how quickly you can get out of it.
Okay. So, if you don't mind me asking, when you found out that your son was deaf right there in the moment, what went through your mind and how did you sort of go through that process?
Mhm. Right away, I thought, well, we can fix this.
Well,
You
that's
know,
true. You did say that. Yeah.
but you know, we were in South Africa for about 2 weeks with him before we were able to come back to the States. And so really I experienced a lot of grief because I realized that this wasn't going to play out the way that I had pictured. A long story leading up to this is it took us 8 years to even from the time we filed for adoption to the time that we even traveled to get our son. Now he's not 8, he was 2.5, but the process was way longer than we thought. And it's just like when you plan and prepare for something, we create this story in our own mind of the way that we think things are going to play out. And all along this journey, none of it was playing out the way that I had planned. And this was just another challenge. Due to that, Malika had a lot of trauma. And because he couldn't communicate, he would dissociate and detach, right? And so we'd be out in public. And this is in Africa still, he couldn't communicate his want or his need. He would roll his eyes back in his head, go limp, and just tears would just stream down his face.
Oh.
And we're just going, what? Oh man, like this is real. Like this is, are we ever going to be able to leave our house again? Like this is kind of how we felt. Like even when we got home, that was the hardest, like probably year of our lives as a family was that transition and getting and finding resources, learning to communicate and dealing with behavior issues. And we have 3 other kids. And so I would say, I don't remember your original question on that. I think you asked like how I responded to that. What was the original question?
Yeah, just sort of like how did you process
Yeah.
the experience of learning that?
Yeah, and I would say the biggest answer is I'm still processing that.
Okay.
I think it's a lifelong process. I have a great mindset about it now, and I'm able to celebrate a lot of it. But there's still grief that comes alongside of how much harder life is going to be for him and more challenging life is going to be for him than what I had pictured it would be.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I know that's part of your personal story there. And if you don't mind, let's pivot just a little bit into the topic of mindset more generally. I know you mentioned that you don't always think mindset has to be positive. Sometimes you have to grapple with the negative, but is there a spectrum of mindsets and what are they?
Yeah, I've thought about that question and I don't know. I'm a visionary, not an integrator. So I think a lot of people could like draw you a spectrum. And I'm like, that's just not the way my mind works. I think the answer is yes, there probably is a spectrum.
Mhm.
I cannot identify what that would be. I think the biggest thing is recognizing that there are different mindsets. And not any of them are necessarily bad, right? I think we need to be in certain places at certain times because that's where how we learn and how we grow,
Mm,
right? So if I didn't allow myself to sit in a mindset of disappointment or frustration with Malachi, since we brought that up earlier, then I would have never been able to process the emotions that come alongside of being in that mindset, right? But it's allowing that to, it's getting stuck and staying in certain mindsets. I think you could have toxic positivity just as much as you could have toxic negativity. You know, I'm
Yeah.
around somebody who's like positive all the time, and I'm like, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
I live in the same world that you live in, and like life is hard. So I think that yes, there's a spectrum. And honestly, whatever that spectrum is, if you were to label it and name that, you could experience every single mindset every single day, just
Mhm.
depending on what's thrown at you. So for me, it's less about like what the mindsets are and instead secondarily learning like how do I respond? Like how do I get out of a mindset that maybe is not benefiting me or benefiting my family? Or how do I give myself the grace to stay in a place that I may need to stay in for a minute to just process through something that is uncomfortable or hard?
Okay, well, and since you brought it up, what's the difference between toxic positivity and healthy positivity?
I think like just having like a grasp on reality in some ways. Like I think it's good to have to be hopeful, right? And so like for me, I can be positive when I'm looking ahead, right? I could be stuck in a really cruddy situation and I can be hopeful because I know that I'm not always going to be stuck in this cruddy situation. But that doesn't mean that I have to be positive in the moment, right? I think that putting on this thing where well, it's okay, everything's going to be fine. Like, I think that is unrealistic. And I think we're lying to ourselves sometimes when we do that. Yes, is everything going to be fine? Does history show me that I'm going to be okay? Do I know that whatever happens, things are going to work out? But that doesn't mean that I can't say this really sucks and I'm going to be pissed right now.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, but just for an example, and I do wrestle with this because I do want to be a person who overall is positive, right? I do want to be that person, but I also want to be real. We were going through some litigation with something connected to a business that I sold a few years ago, and it's a little ridiculous and frustrating, right? And my husband is like, he's such a good man, you know, he's like supports the wife, and he's like, babe, you know, and he's trying to tell me all of the things and why everything is going to be fine. And I told him one day because I was really frustrated. And he was at work, and I called him and I just like threw up on him, used some profanity and whatever. And I was like, I know that it's going to be fine. I believe what you're saying. I'm 100% aligned with you on that, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to need to call you and throw up on you and say mean things about people. Like that I feel like because that's humanity, right? Let's go back to being human. Like that, we have emotions and we're going to walk through. We need to be able to process and walk through those things and be okay if that's not the prettiest side of us in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that toxic positivity is just not allowing yourself to be human sometimes.
Okay.
And my question would go deeper is like, why does someone feel like that they have to do that? Right? Like what are we trying to accomplish with that?
Yeah. What purpose does negativity have?
I mean, I think negativity is great. I think we need to experience negative emotions and things. I think that they bring things to light. You know, sometimes a negative emotion for me or negativity, I have to reflect on myself. Like if I'm feeling negative about my spouse or if I'm feeling negative about my situation, like that's not, oh no, I'm having a negative emotion. It's like, why am I feeling that?
Hmm.
Right? Is there something deeper that I need to unpack from that? If my mindset is really negative every time I do one particular thing, I probably need to take a deep look at if I should be doing that thing or
Hmm.
not doing that thing because this negative mindset is trying to tell me something. So I think that we need to listen to the negativity just as much as we need to lean into the positivity. I think that they coexist with each other.
It was great because you had such a positive attitude about
About
negativity.
negativity. Well, it's because I'm on a podcast, but if you saw me in the moment, it's not a positive attitude, right? It's real life. It's real humanity happening. I
Yeah.
know, and my kids are a great example of this for me, really. And trying to steward this in them has really been the challenge. It's one thing to like be in charge of your own mindset and like learning what's healthy and what's not and doing all this stuff, but helping your kids learn to navigate that, it has been a big challenge for me, because there's a part of me that just wants to be like, your life is great. Don't be an entitled, spoiled little brat. But really, that's what I'm saying internally. But what I want to say is, okay, like, I get that you are feeling whatever it is, and that's okay. I want you to feel that. Sometimes I say, and I want you to feel it in your room, like, so, like, I don't want to make you not feel it. I want you to feel it, but we're not going to feel it right here, like with everybody else. Um,
Yeah.
but teaching others, teaching young people and little kids even, to like express emotion and to be positive, but to also be like, hey, it's okay if this isn't okay, and
Yeah.
to learn to navigate that.
Yeah. Okay. So I agree with you that negativity brings things to light that you might need to really look at that are deeper. And so, like, if, say, somebody is stuck in a negative mindset or a negative loop, and it's literally just their baseline mode of operation in life,
Yeah.
how do they even start to get out of that?
Yeah. I mean, I see this a lot. I see this with entrepreneurs a lot. They got to want to get out of it is the first thing. It's kind of like I'm sorry, I reference kids a lot. It's been my world for 11 years, but like, kids will sit in a dirty diaper for as long as you will let them. Like, it is not phasing them. Like, babies maybe, but like, I still have some in pull-ups, and then in the morning, like, they'll just hang out in that wet pull-up until I tell them to take it off. Right? They know that they probably like being dry better, but they're just kind of used to how it feels. And I think that we can get that way in our mindset sometimes. It's like, well, this is comfortable. I know this. It's like, I don't love it, but I also don't want to get up and change. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I think they've got to want to get out of the mindset of negativity. I think it's also really important to have people in your life that you allow to speak into your life, right? For me, some of the most impactful times where maybe I've gotten unstuck is because someone told me I need to freaking get unstuck,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, we can sit in it, and we need to sit in it at times, but we don't need to like set up camp in that space. It's not good for us. And the mental health comes into play. Like, there's so many facets to staying in a negative mindset. But I think the biggest thing is being able to show people the steps they need to take to get out of it, right? Like, what is the step? And it is the smallest step that I can take, then that's fine. I have a client who I've been working with for over a year. And when I first got this client, he was going through a very tumultuous time in his life. And he was very transparent with me when he would get on calls and just say, like, this is where I'm at. Sometimes he couldn't even talk. Sometimes he just cried literally on the calls, or just was just so stuck. And I was like, my job right now, for as long as it takes, is to help your business sustain, right? This is not a growing season. This is not a let's do new things season, right? But my job, I'm not your therapist. I can't fix this thing that's happening in your life.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can do is help you stay with your head above water enough that your business doesn't tank, right? And so sometimes it just takes somebody like that just to go, like, I'm here with you. I can't do this other stuff for you, but I'm going to help keep you focused on the little baby steps that you need to take. So it may be the most simple things. And a year later, his business is profiting, like, highest profit margins he's ever had, because he did the little things over and over and over again. And it's the little things that actually expound the most over time anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and is everything great in his life? No, it's definitely better. He's out of that fight or flight kind of season,
Mm-hmm.
but his mindset has shifted. And sometimes our mindset shifting is contingent on taking the steps. And that's
Yes.
really hard, because like, you want to get out of it, and the way out of it is taking the step, but you got to make yourself do that. And it's really, really difficult, especially if you're in like a freeze state to
Mhm.
do those things.
Yeah. I like that you brought that up because I experienced that with like some of my clients as well. Before I go there with you,
Yeah.
though, where does resilience fit into this picture?
I mean, I think resilience, and going back even to my fitness expertise. I see resilience as a muscle to be trained, right? And like in strength training, like it's the eccentric movement of a barbell or of weight. It's that tension, right? It's the tussle of it that where muscles really built. And I think resilience is the tension, right? It's a muscle that we need to train, that we need to welcome into our life. It's saying crappy things are going to happen, and I'm going to welcome them because it's what's going to make me a stronger human or a better person or a better, right? It's those things. I, experienced a lot of challenges. I think all of us do, over the last decade in business ownership and personal life and everything. And there are moments where you're like, this can take you out. Like if you own a business, or if you have or in a marriage or whatever, like if you aren't resilient, like it's going to take you out. Like you have got to press through this thing. And so my role as a business mentor now is to start teaching my clients to expect the tension. It is going to come. Something is going to sideswipe you in your personal life that you're not going to see coming. Can we build a resilient business that has the systems and the people in place so that when that thing happens in your personal life, your business is still standing, right? Like, can we prepare ourselves for this so that when it happens, we are strong, right? We are ready for it. I think that people are a little, we're resistant to pressure and to tension because it
Mhm.
doesn't feel good. And I think if we could have the mindset of going, oh, this is going to grow me. Oh, this is where the real work happens. Like that is when we really start to grow as people.
Mm,
Uh,
that's a really good point.
yeah.
Okay. And so resilience, I'm hearing you say, involves preparedness.
Mhm.
It involves strength. Were there any other like high points there that are like the ingredients?
I mean, I think the strength comes from repetition too,
Mm,
you know?
repetition.
Yeah. Like you're not just going to get strong lifting weights one time. You're not going to become resilient by encountering one little challenge, right?
Yeah.
Like it is the repetition. It is being prepared and almost welcoming it. Like we don't want to seek out chaos,
Right, right.
but just going like, hey, when I see that, and that comes back to mindset too, of when something comes at us in our life to go, you know what, this actually does kind of suck, but it's okay because I know I'm going to come out the other side of this
Hmm.
like stronger and better, and this is going to grow me. When things come at me, I look at it at opportunities for growth. When this lawsuit kind of came at me out of nowhere, my first reaction was that like my nervous system didn't like it.
Hmm.
That was my
Hmm.
first. The letter comes in the mail and I'm going, oh, right. And it's okay. I need to experience that. I need to feel that. But then I need to go, you know what? Like I'm going, how I respond to this is going to be really important because I want to show people how you can respond to adversity in a way that is like that doesn't breed negativity, right? I can also teach people a lot from what I learn in this process.
Hmm.
So, is it costing me a bunch of money? Absolutely. Am I losing sleep over it? No, I'm not. Because I have the systems in place. I know it's kind of a bogus thing, but it doesn't matter. I still have to go through the legal, steps and take care of the issue. But in the gym industry in particular, which I mentor like 50 gym owners, nobody would see this coming in their own business either. And so now my experience is going to help people not have to experience this in the future.
Mm, okay.
So I think the repetition is important. And then just like I said, embracing it and seeing it as an opportunity for growth.
Yeah. Okay. Oh gosh. So like my mind's going in a million different places because there's a lot there. And
Well,
it's funny because when you said it's almost like you have to welcome the challenge, I was literally thinking the same thing.
Mhm.
I'm wondering, can we dig deeper into that? How do you go about welcoming a challenge?
Like the actual steps of welcoming it or why I would welcome it.
Ooh, how about both?
Okay. Well, I think the why is important. I think it has to come first. I don't know if you ever heard of Jocko Wilkes. I think he was a Navy SEAL. He's a speaker and author and stuff now, but he puts out a lot of like content and it's like, hey, did this bad thing happen to you? Good. Did this happen? Good. And it's like having the response of like, good, because it's opportunity, right? It's looking at things as opportunities. And so I think for me is I want to welcome, I don't want bad things to happen, don't get me wrong. But I'm 41, I've lived long enough to know that like every day something is going to challenge you, right? So it may be a person, it may be a situation, but something is going to challenge you every day. And so if I am prepared for it, then I'm prepared to respond to it, right? If I try to live this like life of like, well, maybe I can duck and dodge and avoid things, then I am playing defense instead of offense.
And you're making yourself smaller
You're
too,
making
really.
yourself way smaller. And I just want to be ready. Man, it's like I want to be equipped for battle, but I really hope I don't have to actually engage, but I'm ready for it if that happens. And so I think that just one is having the mindset of just expecting things that are challenging to come. And then the steps are like, I think accepting that this negative thing or this challenging thing is happening, like accepting it and going, hey, okay, A is happening and I don't like it. And then allowing yourself to feel whatever you need to feel in that moment to like process it, right? I don't want to be a person who just like stuffs everything down and then it's like I'm not allowing myself to feel because I've got to be ready for because that's going to come out later if I don't process the emotion. So
Mhm.
it's like allowing yourself to feel it and then getting yourself in a headspace where you can think logically and go, okay, so now tactically, is there anything that I can do? A lot of times the only thing that we can control is here. I can't control the scenario. I can't control what's happening, but I can control the way that I respond. And I can control the way that it impacts the people closest to me, right? So worst things that can happen, and I've really had to navigate this in my own life, is an external challenge happens, it affects me, and now it's affecting everybody in my household. Well, I feel like I'm on the losing end of that, and everybody's losing at that point. So, how do I grow to the place to where external challenge happens, it affects me, and now I have the steps in place to go, and it goes nowhere further past this, right? My kids don't experience it, my husband doesn't experience it. Like, it's not affecting their way of life because this didn't happen to them, right?
Mhm. So I've got sort of a big question here for you. So I'm going to refer to my screen over here.
There you go.
But so, okay, when I'm in coaching sessions with clients, like we've identified like smaller actions to take toward a goal. I'll ask them like what supports you in taking that step. Are there any obstacles that we need to go over or like unblock you from?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they'll say, well, the obstacle is me. I just need to make myself do it. And this feels like force to me. Like, and I feel like force doesn't always work. And in some situations, there needs to be compassion, but it just depends on the person. So, like, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is, how do you keep somebody motivated? Or how can someone keep themselves motivated? We're in there when they're in that mindset of, I just need to make myself do it.
So I love the questions that you ask. What are the challenges? What are the obstacles? What support do you need?
Mhm.
And I think my answer to that question would be asking another question is, do you have the tools to do it? Do you know, or do you know what to do? Right? Because they're saying they need to make themselves do it. But okay, but what does that look like? Right?
Mm,
How do you make yourself, because otherwise it feels forced, right? It feels like I'm just like making myself do it. So I'm gonna ask, do you want to do it? Like if we don't want to do something, like we're gonna hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. Do I need to do it? When it comes to a business owner, and like I've definitely had, business owners that I've met with that like it's almost like they don't want to succeed. It's almost like they don't want to change.
even
And
though they say they do.
they say they do, but every action, and it's like, okay, we said we were going to do this, and then here we are, a week later, 2 weeks later, and we've not done any of that. And it's like I can look at the obvious things, which are the excuses that you're getting,
Mhm.
right? Well, this came up and this happened and this happened. Okay, but why are these things happening?
Mhm.
Right? Because it's just such a deeper layer there, I think. Sometimes they don't need to do it. Sometimes they found themselves in a role and in a business and in a situation that they don't need to be in, right? And they would be happier going and doing something else. And I've definitely seen that happen. Sometimes it is a mental health issue at its root, and that's not my scope of practice, right? So it's
Right,
like,
right.
okay, this I'm really recommend, trying to help people get referrals to do what they need to do to get unstuck out of that. And then just making sure that they have the steps. And then so I got a lot of hand holding, like giving them like one small thing to do. A lot of times we can go, and here's everything I need to do. Well, what's the first thing? Do that. And I'm actually going to get off. I've done this before too. If we have like an hour call and we're 30 minutes in, we're going to get off of this call right now. And you're going to use the last 30 minutes that you allotted for me to do this one task. And then I'm going to check with you to make sure that you did this one task. But there's something about them now, they've done something, and it's a small little bit of like some endorphins, and like I did, right? So now, okay, let's do another small something and another small something. And that's what I watched with that one client who I referenced earlier. Is it was the little small things that it did give him it was very small and short lasting, but it gave him a little bit, of what he needed. And so I think that's it too, is just like getting really tactical and finding what works for that individual.
I love that you brought up, well, do they really want to do it? Do they need to do it? What's behind the not taking action toward it? And if a person says that they want to do something and they're finding themselves not doing it, it's like, I feel like, well, okay, so like as a person, I just want to believe them. I want to take what they're saying at face value and I be like, you said you wanted to do it. So I believe that you do, but it's like, well, if somebody says they want to do it, how do you know when they don't really, or if there's something else? Or is it always that they just don't want to do it if they're not doing it?
I think there's definitely the option C, that they don't actually know the answer to that, right? And so like in a situation like that, I may go, okay, so we said we were going to do this, and we got off the call 30 minutes early for you to do this thing, and you said that's what you were going to do, and then you didn't do it. Tell me a little bit about why you didn't do it.
Mhm.
Do you have, well, I don't know. Okay, but you had the time, did you get to distract? No, what's stopping you? And just asking a lot of questions to get them to answer it
Do
themselves.
you ever find that people want you to tell them what to do?
Oh,
And
1,000%. They
yeah.
want you to run their business, right? Like, I mean, so it's like, but and we always say like the mentorship is a done with you process, right? Like I'm not, sometimes there's coaching involved and teaching involved in it, right? But
Mhm.
that's not, and I love doing that to an extent, but I really love like coming alongside of somebody and being that support system for someone. And maybe it's just pulling out this little thing or saying, hey, have you thought about doing this, and helping them with the steps. But people really do want you to do it for them because it feels easier, right? If someone came in and did this for me, maybe they'll do it better, or maybe they'll have different results. And for me, it's like, no, like we're trying to bring this out in you. A lot of business owners, gosh, most business owners that I talk to are accidental business owners,
Mm.
right? So it's like there's not the education, there's not the background to prepare them to run a business. They just found themselves in this business. And a lot of business owners really just bought themselves a job. So it's like you open a business and you could go make more money going and doing the same job for somebody else than you can running your own business. And that's where I come in to go, okay, now how do we take this job that you've created for yourself and now turn it into what you have wanted it to be all along,
Mm.
right? But sometimes we're starting back where you just talked about, like, can't even do the simple task. Send these emails. 2 weeks later, emails not sent, right?
Mhm.
And it's really hard to not want to swoop in and like fix that. But my role is to sit back and go, hey, just checking in. Have you done A, B, C, and D? Okay. And then you got to ask the question. It feels awkward talking to grownups and peers and just say, well, like, as a parent, I'm like, well, honey, why didn't you clean your room? Mommy told you to clean your room. I don't want to, it feels hard and
Yeah.
awkward sometimes to have those conversations, but we're all just kids, like sometimes we need to be held accountable for what we do and what we don't do. And I think that's why I love my job, but also there's some challenges to that.
Mm. I love that you brought up accountability. And I have a lot of clients come to coaching and they're seeking accountability in some kind of way. And like I want to equip them to be able to hold themselves accountable once the coaching relationship is over.
Yeah.
Do you have experience with that? And how do you help people hold themselves accountable?
Yeah, I think it's building healthy habits, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what is the saying? I'm not going to be able to get it, but it's like, teach a man to fish, and basically it'll feed for life. But so we're trying to teach them how to fish.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we can teach them the healthy habits, the number one, honestly, the number one thing that is the catalyst for all of this is people have terrible time management, and they don't time block their schedules, right? So it's like, as an entrepreneur, no one is keeping you accountable to even working or doing your job. And so if you are able to work on your own time and do all your own tasks and all of this stuff, and you don't have good time management, it's a cluster. And so it's like, well, I'm not getting anything done. I was like, well, what time do you have blocked to sit down and do this?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't. Or they do have time blocked, but they allow their phone to be with them, or they check their emails, right? How many times have you been on the computer and you're like, all of a sudden you're in like 30 different tabs and you don't even know how you got there, right? Like, so there's
Yeah.
got to be disciplines to say, I'm sitting down to do this one thing. Any distractions are gone. I'm not allowed to open up tabs. I actually talk to myself out loud because we all struggle with this, right? Like, it's not just like you figure it out. I'm sitting down to work on a specific project, and all of a sudden I find myself in a tab and I recognize it. I've opened something, I've gone down a rabbit trail, and I say out loud, Kourtney, we're not doing this right now. We're not working on this right now.
Mm.
And I may need to write it down somewhere so that I can come back to it later, but that's not what I sat down to do in this moment? So
Yeah.
I think that's part of it, is they just don't, like, we're not a disciplined people. I think that we grow up and we go to school and we face the front of the classroom, and we have to ask permission to go to the bathroom, and then we go to college, and then we're out on our own, and it's like, oh, I don't have to ask anybody to do anything. And then the next thing you know, we're not getting anything done.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm hearing you say that structure,
Mhm.
discipline, habit building, limiting distractions, and setting yourself reminders for other things that come up so you know that you'll get to them later and you can leave them for later
Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
good way.
And then staying consistent, in it. If you do it for a day, celebrate it. See if you can do it for a second day, then celebrate it. Not go like, I'm gonna do this thing for it's fitness, right? People are like, I'm gonna cut all this stuff out of my diet in the next 30 days and I'm gonna lose whatever weight. No, no, you're not. You're going to end up binge eating 3 days in, like this is not gonna work. And it's why people pay for fitness coaching too. Can you go to a gym at your apartment complex? Can you go to a $10 gym and work out? You can. But their whole business structure of these like access gym models is to sell thousands of gym memberships in hopes that people don't show up,
Oh,
right? Because they
wow.
can't actually accommodate that many people in the building at one time,
I never thought
right?
about that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah, I know. Revelation for you right there in the fitness industry. That's what that like Globo Gym like market is. And that's why they prepay, and that's why they're, you know what I'm saying? There's all of this stuff because if everybody that bought a gym membership showed up, they'd be screwed, right?
Yeah.
Even if 10% showed up, they'd probably be screwed, like as far as like space and structure.
Mhm.
So why in like a gym the style of mine, it's like, do you pay this high dollar amount for a personal trainer? It's for the accountability, right? It's for the structure. It's for someone creating a plan for you that all you have to do is show up and follow. Like we need that in our lives. Like most people, I look at people that can go and work out on their own, and I'm like, I am not that person. I have an entire garage gym. Do you think I'm using that? No. I pay a gym membership. I live 40 minutes from my gym. So I pay a gym membership at a gym down the road and I work out with a trainer like for myself because I know that I'm not going to have success on my own. I have a mentor. I'm a business mentor. I also have a mentor because we all need layers of accountability. Now, depending on where we are on our journey, it's different,
Mhm.
right? But we all need some sort of accountability and structure.
Kourtney, I feel like this has been a great conversation. We've spanned the topics of mindset to resilience to accountability, and it's been great. And I really love that you shared some of your personal story. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or that I haven't asked that you think is important to share?
No, I think like just circling back to like what it means to be human. I love just like talking about life. And I think people want to hear about real life. And it's funny because like I didn't hesitate to share my story because people relate to real things.
Hmm.
And as far as I go, like I'm pretty much an open book in a way that is going to help people see like, hey, like there's so many influencers and people out there on social media. It's like this is not their real life. Like we need to see more real life. And my life is chaos, but it is absolutely fantastic and it is beautiful and it is as organized as I could possibly have it without trying to control it. It's good. I've really enjoyed the conversation.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on. And how can our listeners find you and all of your work?
I'm not one of those that's like putting everything out there in the interweb, so to speak. You can find me on Facebook. It's facebook.com/Kourtney Brownlow. Kourtney is with a K. And if someone's looking for business mentorship, like I'm more than happy to have conversations there. If you're in the Williamson County area and you need some fitness, franklinstrengthandwellness.com. We have a very great team of personal trainers that are professionals that can help you reach your goals. And yeah, if you have a deaf kid and you need community, like hit me up.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I will make sure to put all of those links in the show notes for our listeners. And Kourtney, I hope you have a great rest of your day.
You too, Brandy.
Thanks for tuning in. Check out more of our episodes here and at humanamplified.com. Remember to subscribe.